If you are cooking along, I would love for you to turn your video on just so I can get like a quick thumbs up to make sure you guys are ready. Nice. Okay. We're gonna get started because there's a ton of stuff to cover today and I'm scared we're gonna run out of time. So just a few housekeeping things like the last session. Oops, sorry. Thank you for posting your dishes to the Show and Tell channel. They all look amazing. Brittany, yours looks awesome. Cindy, Kathleen, Alan, Aaron, great job with the picture there. Matt, yours looks extra saucy. So yeah, after today, continue to post the Show and Tell. It doesn't have to be the dishes we do in class. It could be anything that showcases your process or how your fridge looks before and after. Channel update, I mentioned in the last session that I'm going to do bite-sized chunks of demos that I cover in class and also didn't have time to cover during class. So that's where you're going to see a lot of tasks that you might want to pay attention to or things that you may have missed during the longer session. If you want to see anything specific here, I love making these, so please feel free to message me on Circle when you post to general, requesting a certain demo. Get right on it. Some miscellaneous things. There's been a lot of good questions on the general channel. Please continue to post there if I can be of any assistance. And also, I started posting what I'm eating and cooking and a little bit of an explanation as to how I think about preparing meals on a day-to-day basis in the Show and Tell channel. So stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let us go into the main course of today. Let's see. Music check. I'm good. All right, so we are going over the MEs today. Two projects. I'm going to introduce you to the idea of like a side project that we're going to do, which is caramelized onions. Hopefully you guys have a lot of like either diced or sliced onions ready to go. You're going to need a little bit of water. So if you're not near a sink, just grab a bowl of water. You're going to need some unsalted butter and your container of sliced onions. It's okay if they're diced. And that's for the caramelized onions. For the shakshuka, we are going to have our peeled and diced tomatoes. You're totally fine using canned tomatoes if you didn't have time to prepare that. You want a head of garlic. You want a bell pepper. You can learn how to break down those down. And you want the avocado and also 3 or more eggs, depending on how many eggs you want to eat for dinner or lunch. And then we're going to garnish. Today's garnish is going to be the parsley. And similar to last time, this is your kind of station for your next to your stove. So we have kosher salt, we have pepper grinder, kitchen towel. Today we're going to cook with the extra virgin olive oil. So make sure you have that handy next to your stove. I'm going to move this back. And I'm going to put away kind of the garnish. Always a good idea to clear your station as you go. So the parsley and the avocados go back in the fridge. And we're going to get started on the caramelized onions. So start preheating your pan. We're going to preheat this 10 to 12 inch skillet. And today we're all about doing kind of low to medium cooking, so no need to put this on high. You're gonna grab your unsalted butter. In general, it's always a good idea to cook with unsalted butter because you could always add more salt, but you can't take salt out of your final dish. And you're just going to melt enough butter to cover the bottom of the pan. And there's no such thing as too much butter, so, be liberal with it. I'm gonna switch the camera now. Can everyone see? So the reason we're doing this as a side project is because I want you to get familiar with multitasking. And you always want to be cognizant during kind of when you're spending time in the kitchen of whether you can make things that go in the fridge that'll help you sort of prepare the next meal, right? So because we have tons of onions from our last couple of sessions, we're just gonna, make some caramelized onions with it so you can use it, you can freeze it for later, and it makes for excellent garnish with like pizza or even the shakshuka we have today or French onion soup. So the butter is gonna start melting, and you kind of want to watch it carefully. You don't want it to burn. And the reason why butter burns is because there's a bunch of milk solids in it in addition to water, which is why it's bubbling right now. If you have a stainless steel skillet, I challenge you to make brown butter. And what that means is that you're just gonna watch the color turn. If you don't have a stainless steel pan and you have a dark color coating in your pan, then just melt the butter and immediately throw your onions in. And just a heads up, you don't want to use all your onions here, just enough to cover sort of the first ½ inch of the pan because you don't want to crowd the pan. And we need to reserve some of the diced onions for the shakshuka.
How many diced onions do we need for the shakshuka?
Honestly, maybe like half a cup.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need that many. It's also to taste. So if you like onions in your tomato sauce, feel free to put more than a cup. So the butter should be foaming. I'm going to up the heat a little bit just to get a little color on it. And once you start to smell that nuttiness and the color starting to turn, you want to remove it from heat and throw the onions in. And that'll kind of stop the butter from cooking. It's important you watch it because brown butter turns very quickly. It's very easy to overcook. It's gonna start making a lot of sound. And also, if we have any downtime, I'm gonna keep answering questions, so feel free to unmute yourself and just ask me as we go. So you can see here that it's starting to turn a little brown. And this is a crucial step. And honestly, you're gonna smell it before it turns, right? It's gonna smell a little nutty. It's gonna turn a different shade of yellow. And you just want to hover like a hawk. Now it's turning brown. And we're going to put our sliced onions in. And the reason why we're starting with this is because this is going to take upwards of 45 to an hour. Contrary to what a lot of recipes say online, you cannot make caramelized onions in 15 minutes. Most likely they're just talking about sauteing onions, which is a different thing. Caramelized onions are called caramelized onions because all the sugars caramelize. And they undergo what is called a Maillard reaction, in which the browning happens. And it usually happens at around 280 to 140 degrees Celsius. And that's what makes that browning, that sear on your steak. And it smells really good because of that particular chemical reaction. So, use this. So you want to lower your heat. You do not want to get any color on your onions. And this is going to kind of be sitting in the background the entire class. And you just want to kind of keep an eye on it. And you can add a little more than what I have currently because these onions are going to cook down a ton. And the reason why you want to keep a bowl of water next to you is because you don't want it to get too dry, because then the temperature of the pan goes above the temperature of the water boiling, which is 212, 100 Celsius, and don't want any color these onions. I'm just gonna put it on low heat. You also don't want to put it on too low of a heat, otherwise it's just gonna take forever. So it's a balancing act, right? You want to make sure there's enough heat applied, not so much heat that it burns. How's everyone doing with their onions?
I got a quick question. How different is it for diced onions versus sliced? Because I diced mine instead of slicing.
You want to keep an eye on it. It really doesn't really matter. Usually, I mean, traditionally you would slice onions to kind of give it more surface area to cook down. And also it's like a texture thing. So obviously, you know, diced onions are gonna cook down and shrink. So you may not have like that kind of stringy texture you want in your final caramelized onions. But conceptually, it's the same thing.
Okay.
What you don't want to do is mix diced onions with sliced onions when you're caramelizing, because some of them is going to start to cook faster than the other kind of cut. But because you're cooking at such a low heat, it doesn't really, you know, at the end the result is the same. It just might be a texture thing. You're gonna have diced mixed with sliced. So it might taste a little weird. It might also look a little weird. So this thing's just going to sit in the background while we do our main thing. Err on the side of lower heat here. And then just, you know, check on it every once in a while. Keep it in your peripheral.
Can I ask, you said not putting any color on it, trying to color on it. How did you know that?
Sorry, Robert, did you get that? Tiffany, do you want to repeat that question again?
You said not to get any color on it. Mine has it's like brown on the edges and all of that. How did you avoid putting color on it?
So I think what was just said, because your head turns away from the microphone when you talk.
Yeah.
You're brown around the edges of your onions, right?
I'll type.
You're browning the edges? No, you shouldn't be having any color at all. You don't want to be browning anything. It's the slow. I mean, it should still look like this, right? It's going to gradually turn color, but you don't want any kind of uneven browning. So low and slow is the name of the game here. It's okay if you get a little browning, as long as it's not burnt. Just want to turn it all the way down and maybe add some water if you find that the pan is a little dry. Are we ready to move on? Let me get a quick check from the chat. Now's a good time to put away your meats for the caramelized onion. So if you have any sliced onions left, feel free to put it back in the fridge. Also, we're not going to use the butter anymore, so let us clean our stations. Tiffany, are you cooking outside? That's awesome.
No, it's just a background.
Oh, it's the background.
Yeah.
Okay, so while that's going on in the background, if you find this a little challenging, it's by design. We're here to learn how to cook, and multitasking is one of those things where it's part of the job description. So it's okay if you are slightly anxious, because that makes two of us. Okay, right now we are going to move on to the shakshuka. Grab your bell pepper. I'm going to learn how to break this down. It's a little different than the onion and the tomato. So what you're going to do is chop the top off. Sorry, let me shrink this. Yeah. You're gonna chop the top off, you're gonna chop the bottom off. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna core out the middle part. You're gonna stick your knife into the core, and then you're just gonna move around like that, removing the core. And it should fall out. You should get this little middle part that I would not save for stock. I don't love the taste of pepper or bell peppers in stock, so I usually just feed this to my worms. You can save the top if you want to trim it, but it's good compost. And we're going to take the middle part, you're going to split it, and you're going to lay it flat like this. And then you're just going to trim horizontally. You're going to trim the top part off. Careful with your fingers. You're going to basically make a very flat, like a pepper leather, I guess, 2 flat strips here. And now you have your planks ready to dice. Not dice. Oh, yes. You're going to cut into strips first and then dice. The key here is to make sure you want to slap this flat, so then you can get a good grip with your guiding hand. It's just a simple julienne. And then to dice it, I'm just going to take a bunch, line them up, and then dice them. That'll be a good time to steal a glance at your onions. Mine is doing okay, but if you give it a couple stirs, it should help all of them cook evenly. All right, we're going to use all of this bell pepper today, so just put it in a prep bowl or one of the cup containers. No need to label because we're using this all up. Any questions so far? So now, if you are ready, we are going to start sweating the onions, and we're actually going to use extra virgin olive oil today. I know I made a big deal about not cooking with it, but when you're sweating onions, you're actually doing that at low heat, so you're not actually anywhere close to the smoke point of the olive oil, so you preserve a lot of the flavor. Same thing, you want to preheat the pan a little bit. And make sure you have a lid for this pan you're cooking on, because what we're doing at the end is we're going to poach the eggs in the tomato sauce. So once the pan is preheated, we're going to put just a little bit of olive oil. And we're going to put some of the onions. Yeah, it's enough. Obviously, this is going to cook down, so you want to put it more than you think you might need. And this is kind of the first thing you do when you kind of cook with any aromatic vegetables like onions or carrots or celery. You kind of want to sweat them. And what that means is usually just on medium heat, you want to start the process of evaporating and concentrating the flavors, but you don't want to get any color on it because usually you're doing something else with these vegetables later. Right now, you just want to essentially bring out the flavor of the vegetable. While you're sweating the onions, check on your other onions. They should start to get a little bit, I wouldn't say brown, but very much translucent. And definitely very soft. And make sure you still have a little bit of moisture in there. If it's getting dry or you're getting brown bits at the bottom of your pan, definitely put some water in there. You want all the sugars to start kind of caramelizing. But if you do too high of a heat, it's going to start burning. So once the onions are kind of translucent, we're talking in your shakshuka skillet, you want to pour in the green peppers. That'll take a few more minutes. If you have tomato paste and if you're planning on using the spice mixture, now would be a good time to get them ready. And in the meantime, I'm going to show you how to peel a head of garlic. So allow me to stand on my soapbox a little bit. We want to buy whole heads of garlic because peeled garlic is actually a product of like a lot of peeled garlic sold in the US is a product of Chinese slave labor. So also make an ethical stance when you buy fresh garlic. And also it keeps for a really long time if you keep it in a dark and cool place. The trick that I'm going to show you is you want to take 2 hard bowls. So anything other than your 4 containers aren't going to work here. You want to take 2 bowls, they're hard and the same size, and you're just going to first crush the head of garlic with your hand. Apply a lot of pressure over the head, and you're going to get these little flows. Throw everything into one bowl. Make sure it's broken up. Scoop everything into the bowl. And you're going to cover this whole thing with the other bowl. And this might be a good time to mute me if you are sensitive, have sensitive hearing, but I'm going to shake this up very rigorously for like maybe 10 seconds. I'm going to start it now. Okay. And then here comes the magic moment. You are going to get peeled garlic. It's that easy. And anything that doesn't peel, I wouldn't worry about it. Put it in your stock scrap. Cooking's all about efficiency. So if it doesn't peel, it's not meant to be. It is meant to be in your stock. Wait, this is peeled. Yep. And usually I buy like a whole sleeve of garlic and just do this with a larger bowl, and then you have like peeled garlic for days. And keep an eye on your pans, your peppers and onions. If they look a little, there's browning happening, just lower the heat. You want to keep sweating them. Same thing with your caramelized onions. At this point, if you're doing something, if you're actively doing something, just bring the heat down, that gives you a little bit more buffer. Last thing you want is anything burning. So today we are all about low and slow cooking. And these skins don't really have flavor, but you want to save the peels. Yeah, these peels have a ton of flavor, so
Hey, John.
put this all in your freezer stock scrap bag.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Alice has a question. Were we supposed to salt the shakshuka veggie mixture? I can't.
No, you don't need to. We're gonna season all at the end. All right. Okay, so we're gonna take, you are free to mince as much garlic as you want to eat. I'll probably do 2 cloves. You want to take the top and the bottom off. And we're just gonna finely mince. And this is kind of a different cutting technique we'll use, but you want to learn how to mince anything today. So you're gonna basically slice it into thin strips. And then you are going to hold your knife by its neck here, like this. And then you're going to position your guiding hand on top of the tip of the knife. Maybe not so far, like 2 inches from the tip. And you're just gonna rock back and forth. Like that. And then you're gonna use your knife to kind of scrape, make it into a line, make sure everything is off your blade. And then you're just gonna do this until you get a fine mince. Eventually you get to a point where you find kind of that pivoting motion where you get to do this a little faster.
Hey, John, what are your thoughts on garlic presses?
On the garlic powder?
Press.
My thoughts on garlic powder, they're not the same thing as freshly minced garlic.
Oh, sorry, I said garlic press.
Garlic breath?
Press. P-R-E-S-S.
A garlic press. I'm not a fan of single-use kitchen appliances, but I understand why that might be appealing for some people. I really don't have any opinions. If that's something that you want in your life, who am I to stop you? But I do think it's important to know how to mince anything. Like this is, you can use this technique for, minced parsley, garnish. And it's not that much work, right? I also think the texture you get from a garlic press is more of a paste because it essentially is a press. And so you get a different texture as the end result. So you're gonna basically, you're gonna put your minced garlic into your pepper and onion mixture that are sweating. And you kind of want to turn the heat down on this one because garlic burns very easily. You should never really put garlic in first because that's how you get kind of the burnt garlic bits. And your minced garlic is done as soon as you kind of smell it. It doesn't really take much. And right now, if you have your your tomato paste and your spice mixture, you're just gonna put a healthy tablespoon of tomato paste into there you go. I'm gonna put tomato paste into your pan. You're just gonna cook it for like 10-20 seconds. Give us some color.
Can you remind us what's in the spice mixture?
Yeah, it's paprika, cumin, and coriander. A lot of you probably know shakshuka as a Mediterranean dish, but it actually has a North African origin. So we're using a spice blend that is more North African in its influence. Usually with Mediterranean shakshuka, you would put like za'atar in it. So once your tomato paste has some color in it, put in the spice mixture. And I didn't really give you like a specific amount because I find most recipes kind of under index on the amount of spices that it takes to make something taste good. So I usually like triple or quadruple the amount. And a lot of the spices they sell at markets are old. So obviously it takes a lot more to season to really bring out that flavor. So this is where kind of like seasoning to taste comes into play.
Hey, John.
Oh.
Sorry. We have a question. What should we put in if we aren't using the tomato paste?
What do we use?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't need the tomato paste. Tomato paste is basically to help the mixture like thicken, but naturally the tomato juice and the tomatoes themselves are going to be sufficient. And also for color. If you want your final shakshuka to have like a dark red color, tomato paste is an easy way to do that. So, you know, once your spices are combined and mixed, you're just gonna pour it in. You're gonna pour in your tomatoes. Hopefully you have a quart. But the ideal kind of mixture you have is it should cover the whole pan, about half to an inch. And then if you find that you don't have a lot of liquid in it, we want the consistency to be kind of like a stew. So you can add a little bit of water. And we're just gonna do the same thing we did on Tuesday, which is we're just gonna reduce the tomatoes and make kind of a sauce. We want it to be a little bit more liquid this time because we're going to next poach our eggs within this tomato mixture. Now's a good time to also clean up your station.
All right. Hey, John.
Yes.
This sort of was something you just talked about. Alice asked, I saved the tomato juice. Should I add that too?
Yeah, don't add too much. Add it, if you have it separately, I would just add it until it covers the tomatoes, but not too much more. Unless you want a really soupy shakshuka at the end, then totally do it. But ideally, you want enough to cover the tomatoes to cook. You want to bring it to a simmer. So feel free to crank that heat up. Not too hard, but you want it on a gentle simmer. And then we're going to lower our eggs in. So while we wait, I'm going to clean up my cutting board, put everything away, label anything that you put in your quart containers. If you have a small sieve, this step is completely optional, but I'm going to show you why when you poach your eggs, and today we're poaching our eggs in tomato sauce, but usually when I poach eggs in just water, I strain the egg whites. The reason is because the egg whites consist of the thick albumin and the thin albumin, and you want to strain out the thin albumin because that's how you end up with poached eggs that look like, you know, you got like TP stuck on your shoe. So you're just gonna crack the egg over a small sieve. And if you don't have one, don't worry. You can make the final dish without straining the eggs at all. Just like to do it for presentation purposes. You get a tighter shape around the egg. And I would just crack it directly over like a cup container and then label it for egg white, and you can use egg white for other purposes. If you don't have a strainer, totally fine, but you want to crack the egg. So on the left hand side, I have the strained egg. On the right hand side, I'm just going to show you what it's like when I don't. And you should be watching both your caramelized onions, which should be, let me show you what I have now. So there's the tomato sauce should be at a gentle simmer. If it's starting to boil, lower the heat. You want to retain as much of the liquid while the tomatoes cook. And also check on your caramelized onions. And they should reduce, like, they should be like half the amount of what you started with. You get very stringy if you're using sliced onions, and they get very, I guess, really small if you started with diced onions. So move them around. Take a look at them. They should look something like this. You'll probably need another 15 minutes. You want them to sort of develop that brown color very naturally. And if you taste them at this stage, which you're welcome to do, they start to taste really sweet. And it's only going to get sweeter as the sugars caramelize. Okay. So, how is everyone doing? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Do we need a couple minutes to catch our breath? So your tomato sauce, feel free to stir it a couple times, make sure it's simmering. I'm gonna turn up the heat because I want this to reduce a little bit more before I put the eggs in.
Hey, John. I dump in canned diced tomatoes.
Yeah, yeah,
If it's a little like too watery, do you just let it simmer longer?
yes,
Okay.
exactly. You don't want to reduce it too much because then the eggs won't have a liquid to poach in. But if you have too much water, if it's too loose, definitely just let it simmer longer. You can also totally just crack the eggs over the shakshuka later if you want to save on sort of your containers. I just wanted to show you what I do with poached eggs usually. And while that's doing its thing, we're going to move on to our garnish. So grab your parsley. Definitely hear you, Lisa. This is it's part of cooking. You do it enough times, you start to develop kind of your sense to ability to multitask. So if you love multitasking, you should love cooking. That's all you do. So we're gonna take our parsley. You're gonna pick the parsley leaves. Just get don't have to be too precious with the stems. The stems can go in the scrap bag in your freezer, or just back in the container you put it in. I usually just put it back, and then at the end, after I'm done using the parsley, I will transfer it to the stock bag. So we're gonna learn a technique called chiffonade, which is thin strips, just basically cutting something in thin strips in French. What you want to do is just stack the parsley loosely on top of each other. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're kind of making a bouquet like this. And then you're just going to kind of fold it on itself to make like a bunch. You don't have to do this step, but it's just easier for your guiding hand to kind of keep them bunched together. And you're just gonna basically slice widthwise. And then you're just going to get these nice thin strips of parsley. Don't have to do this, but it's for nicer presentation than just like randomly torn parsley leaves. So now you have your garnish. Transfer it to the cook container. And then usually when I prep garnish, I usually cut a bunch of them so I can use it throughout the week, you know. I want us to start getting the habit of like always making our meals nice, and this is an easy way to do it. It's just having garnish in the fridge makes your life a lot easier. So now we have our garnish. Check on your caramelized onions. Check on your shakshuka mixture. Should still be at a gentle simmer. And you can kind of see it getting thicker with all the juice and all the flesh cooking down. So now, make sure that your mixture still has some liquid in it. It should be covering the tomatoes. You're going to lower the heat, and you're just going to use the back of your cooking spoon to make like a hole, just a little divot for the eggs to go in. I'm gonna do 3 eggs. And then I'm gonna lower my eggs in. I hope you're all not sick of tomatoes with eggs yet, but part of my intent with these 2 sessions have been to show you that just because you don't have a lot of ingredients doesn't mean you can't cook a variety of meals with them. And once you've lowered your eggs into the shakshuka mixture, make sure everything's level. All the eggs are tucked into their little egg holes, and then you're just gonna cover it up. You wanna lower your heat because when you cover a pot, the heat capacity increases. So you want to make sure it's lower heat so you're not accidentally boiling the eggs. You're just gonna leave it on for like 3-4 minutes. Obviously, you can totally check the eggs for doneness. If you like it a little bit more liquid in the center, check it at around 3 minutes and adjust. If it's not cooking fast enough, increase the heat. How's everyone doing? We are in the final stretch. The onions are looking pretty nice. I'm gonna raise the temperature of the pan because it's not browning as fast as I want. Caramelizing, I should say. Okay. So, we're getting nice and caramelized. The eggs are getting poached. Good time to clean up your station. If you have any questions now would be a great time for me to answer them. Okay, we have 10 minutes. We're really good on time, so I'm going to show you a party trick with an avocado. Usually with shakshuka, you kind of serve it on the vessel that you cook with, so there's really no plating involved today. But one of the things you can do to jazz up the presentation is to put an avocado flower in the middle. And also, I assume everyone here likes avocado, so good time to show you how to properly break it down. You want to start with a ripe avocado. It should have some give when you press on the flesh. This is only going to work if you have a ripe avocado. So what you're going to do is basically cut it in half. Just going to rotate your knife around the pit. Be careful with your hands here, and you're just going to do a twist. And you're going to take the hilt of your knife and just kind of remove the avocado pit that way. Careful when you remove the pit from the knife. Toss it, save it to plant in your garden. And then at this point, you should be able to peel the avocado. So you're just going to slowly peel the thing. Be gentle because this part you can kind of mangle exterior. Yeah, this is my least favorite part. If anyone knows a better way to peel avocado, I would love to hear it. Something I have not mastered. Yeah. So this avocado is turning a little too
Alice,
ripe.
Alice has like a thing she does with a spoon.
Ooh,
A highlighter.
that's a good idea. All right, so I set a timer for 3 minutes. I'm gonna check on the shakshuka now. Let's see. Let us see how it's looking. So you can start to see the whites are setting. I might need a couple more minutes, so we're just gonna let it do its thing. Put the lid back on. Yeah, so avocados are really annoying because they are good only for a few days. So you're gonna smooth out the top. It doesn't make too much difference here. My fear with a spoon is always like, I'm not gonna get like the perfect, I'm gonna leave some flesh in the skin, on the skin. So what you're gonna do is to make, you're gonna make really thin slices. The key here is to make really thin slices. I'm gonna switch to my fillet knife because it has a very thin spine. Sorry if that's a little cheating here. But you want to make really thin slices widthwise. You're gonna take your time. And in general, if you make a single downward stroke, that keeps the food from sticking to your knife. In general, some foods like butter, you probably have to use your guiding hand to kind of stop it from moving with you, or moving with the knife. Check on your shakshuka, forgot to set a timer. Let's see. Okay, so at this point, it's mostly done. I would do another minute and then maybe rotate the pan a little bit because you can see I have one last egg that's you can still kind of see the whites of, so I'm gonna cover it for 2 more minutes. Now we're gonna go back to our avocado. Slices. Yeah, I can already feel like this avocado is turning a little too ripe. Let me taste. You want that perfect blend of malleability and also integrity. This is one is a little mushy. Also, reminder to check on your caramelizing onions. It should be pretty done by now. It could go a little longer depending on your taste if you want that kind of dark brown caramelly texture. But once you've made these, and you will never look at an onion recipe again, because the difference between sauteed onions that you quickly brown over high heat and caramelized onions is night and day. If you've been to In-N-Out and asked for caramelized onions, you know what I'm talking about. So with your avocado sliced, what you're going to do is gently kind of start to shape your avocado into like I don't know the proper shape for this, but maybe like a snake, because it's green and it's kind of like slithering. Yeah, we can make this work. You might want to make it as long as possible. You want to make the distance between each slice as even as possible. You could actually make this really long if you want. If you want a big flower, if you want a smaller flower, obviously keep it a little short. But you want it long enough where you can start to bend and make the core and make sort of an angular motion. And the reason why you want it ripe is because if it's too hard, it's going to crack. So we're going to end up with an ugly rose. So once you have it stretched out, let us go back and check on our shakshuka. Yeah, so this is done. If you want it a little bit more solid, I like mine a little liquidy. You could actually go for another minute, but I'm gonna turn off the stove now. Just kind of let the residual heat cook the eggs so that it's kind of like kind of like jammy. Bon Appetit likes to describe his fish eggs as jammy. Now back to our avocado. We have 2 minutes. I have faith we can finish this in time. So I'm gonna make a snake, and then you're just going to do a quick visual check to see if you have most of the slices equidistant. If there's any part that's like bunched up, you want to like stretch it apart a little bit. So now you're going to start from one end, and you're just going to rotate it. I'm actually going to eat this end. The end part's not important. And then you're just going to roll it. You want to take your time. So once this splits, it's really hard to put it back together again. How's everyone doing? We are in the final stretch. We just need to plate our dish and then we're done. So to move this flour, we're not done with the garnish yet, but you want to take a fish spatula, or you can even do your knife if it's wide enough. So I'm going to use my chef's knife and to move this. You want to bring your shakshuka pan over. Yeah. I'll let you see what my shakshuka looks like. So you still, see plenty of sauce. This is not kind of the consistency we did. It's a little looser than the consistency of our tomato stir-fried egg. But it should still be kind of saucy. And then what you want is to bring it over to your cutting board. And to use your knife to gently scoop the rose onto your knife. Make sure the edges are kind of covered, otherwise it's going to fall apart. And then just move your avocado rose into the center. And then now we're going to fold out the flour. So you're just going to kind of gently, starting from the outside, you're just going to unroll this flour. I wish this avocado was a little less ripe. So now you have a nice little avocado roast, nice contrast with the dish. And then you're going to take your chiffonade parsley and just kind of garnish around it. And good pinch of salt. Some cracked black pepper. And I usually eat this with like bread, or you can even do rice if you want. But that's it. This is shakshuka, a little fancied up. We are 3 minutes over time, but I will stick around for everyone to finish. If you guys have any questions.
John, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is it possible to move it from this to a different container?
To a different container, what do you mean?
Like if I want to bring it somewhere for dinner, do I just got to bring the pan?
Oh yeah, no, you can totally, yeah. I mean, you're obviously going to use a spoon to kind of like shove the eggs out of the way first, and then you should, yeah, you can totally put this in the container to go. Obviously, like the rose is going to be hard to move, so maybe save that. Cool.
Hey John.
Yes.
I noticed my shakshuka in general was a lot less watery than it was going in. Is that like a tomato selection thing? Like are you supposed to use a certain type?
Your tomatoes is a lot what? Sorry, say that again.
Less watery. Like not juicy.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when it's not as ripe, obviously you're going to get less juice. So, you obviously want to, you can also use the tomato sauce. If you keep some tomato sauce in your pantry, you could add that in, or you can add water to compensate for that. And, similar to how we learn to kind of balance out the ripeness of your tomatoes with sugar, you can also add a little sugar to taste. We didn't do much tasting today just because we had so many things going on, but usually when you're reducing kind of the tomato mixture, you want to be able to season and taste it. And if it's a little too acidic, then obviously add sugar to balance it out.
Did I miss the point at which we added salt? Does that happen at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I did a heavy pinch of salt at the end because I was totally my bad. I forgot to season as we went. So take this as a cautionary tale to always season as you go. Obviously, when you're reducing down the tomatoes, once you're ready to poach the eggs, that's when I would start to heavily season. So thank you for calling me out on that.
Not my intention.
No, totally. I mean, we all goof sometimes, but the thing is with this dish is like, you can still season it because it's in liquid. So mix it up, taste it. If it's under seasoned, just add more salt. And also, I want to show you the caramelized onions. It could go a little darker, but it's ready. This is pretty good in terms of the color you want. Honestly, I like it a little bit more, so I'll probably spend another 15 minutes cooking this down. Cool. How did everyone's turn out? I know it was a lot today, but I never said this was going to be an easy class, so I'm glad you enjoyed it, Alice. But Kay, I can't wait to see yours. I can't wait to see everyone's. Awesome. Well, that's it for today. I will see you all on Sunday. A little bit of preview on what we're doing on Sunday. I will do another demo. We're actually going to learn how to fabricate a chicken. You don't need to kind of follow along, but if you like, I know some people like doing that. So just get a whole chicken and then we can learn how to fabricate that. And next week is all about stocks and sauces. And I will send you all a prep list similar to how I've been doing in these sessions this week, just so you have all your stuff ready. But aside from that, that's it for today. Have a great weekend, guys. I will see you on Sunday.